foods in this image. These foods are part of our breakfast, lunch or dinner. But have you ever thought from where does this foods come from? Or who cultivate them? I am Shajabin, and in today's chapter, Crop Production and Management, we'll study how crop production takes place, how they are managed and how they reach our tables. So let's start with what is crops. Crops are plants that are cultivated in large areas. So crops are plants that are grown in large areas. So these can be either food crops, fodder crops or cash crops. Now see, crops can be either food crops, fodder crops or cash crops. Okay. So basically in this chapter we are going to deal about food crops. We know that India is a vast agricultural country. India has different climatical conditions. Now, because of this different climatical conditions, the crops in India is divided into two major types. The first type is Kharif crop and the other type is Rabi crops. Kharif crops are crops that are grown during rainy season, while Rabi crops are crops that are grown during winter season. So, Kharif crops, crops that are grown during rainy season. Okay, and Rabi crops are crops that are grown during winter season. Now, we know that in India, rainy season is from the month of June to September. Hence, these crops are grown during the month of June to September. Whereas, the winter season in India falls from October to March. Hence, the Rabi crops are grown during October to March. Now, you can see paddy, maize, bajra, jowar, these and all are Kharif crops. Now, Rabi crops equates wheat, barley, peas, grams, etc. Now, this was about the different types of crops. Now, for the growing of crops, farmer needs to follow a particular steps, and these steps has to be followed one after the other. If any steps is missed in between, the crop production will get hampered, okay? The yield will be less. Now, these practices or these steps, we call it as agriculture practices. So, can you just tell me what is the first agriculture practices that farmer has to follow? Okay, the first agriculture practice is preparation of soil. So, there are different agriculture practices, one after the other the farmer has to follow. But the very first agriculture practice is preparation of soil. Now, if you just see a barren land or any agriculture field, barren agriculture field, you'll be finding that the soil is very hard. Okay, so before planting or before sowing the seed, the farmer has to make sure that the soil is soft enough for the seed to grow, okay, for the microbes to grow, for the water to get absorbed easily. So, for all these reasons, the farmer has to make sure that the field has very good soil, okay. So, for that, the farmer has to prepare the soil first. Now, for preparing soil, the farmer has to plough or till the field. So, what is meant by ploughing or tilling? It is the process of loosening the soil, making the soil particles separate from each other so that the water absorption increases, the roots can easily penetrate into the soil and even the microorganism can easily grow in that soil. So, the first thing the farmer has to do is ploughing or tilling. So, for that purpose, for ploughing, farmer uses the agricultural implement called plough. Okay, so farmer use the agriculture implement called plough for ploughing or tilling. Now, not only ploughing and tilling, but farmer also need to level the soil. Okay, so leveling is also required. Leveling is the process of breaking crumbs and making the soil surface equal. Okay, so what happens? The plants will not grow properly if the soil surface is uneven, and leveling helps to make the soil surface even by breaking all the solid crumbs. Okay, so why do they do this process? Why do they prepare the soil? We have already learned why do they do that. So preparation of soil is done to loosen the soil. Okay, first they plough the soil to turn the soil. The lower soil comes up, the upper soil goes down. So turning of soil as well as the soil get loosened. Okay, loosening of soil also take place. Now the next thing is for the penetration, easy penetration of roots. So roots are usually very delicate. So for the roots to penetrate deep into the soil has to be prepared first. And then for the growth of earthworms and microbes. Earthworms are known as farmer's friend because they help to increase the nutrient content in the soil. Similarly, there are certain microbes which are also very beneficial for plants because they also helps to increase the nutrient content of the soil. Now, for preparing soil, the agricultural implements that are used are plough, the very traditional one. So this can be hand used or can be tied up on the backs of bull or horse. Okay, it can be used, hand used, or so usually what happens, this part of the plough, the triangular part of the plough helps to till the soil, and this is where we handle the plough. Okay, so usually this triangular, the tip of the triangular part has a metallic strip attached there which helps in the tilling of the soil. The next implement for preparation of soil is hoe. It is similar to plough. It has a blade, it has a handle. Okay, the farmer use this blade to till the soil. But nowadays, most of the farmers are using machines for ploughing, and that we call it as cultivator. Cultivators are machines that are used for ploughing, and using of this cultivators what they do, they attach it to the tractors, and using tractors they plough the field. Now because of this cultivator, the farmers work also reduces as well as the time also reduces. So this was about the preparation of soil. Now once the soil is prepared, the soil is loose now, the farmer has to move into the next step. And the next step is sowing. Sowing is the next step. So what is sowing? Sowing means planting seeds into the soil. Planting seeds into the soil is known as sowing. Before sowing, the farmers has to make sure that whatever seeds they are using, that seed should be healthy. So for that purpose, how can we do that? Okay, how can we find out whether the seed is healthy or unhealthy? So for that, we just need to put the seeds in a glass or in a tumbler containing water. So if we just put seed in a tumbler containing water, the healthy seeds will sink below. Okay, it will sink, whereas the unhealthy seeds keep floating on top of the water surface. So this shows that the seeds which are sink are healthy seeds, and the farmers can use these seeds for sowing. Okay. Now sowing can be done by two methods. It can be done by traditional method or modern method. Now in traditional method, farmers, small farmers who have very small area of land, they usually hand sow it or use a small implement where there's a funnel shaped structure and a tube. So they put all the seed in this funnel shaped structure, and from the tube the seed falls in the soil. So this is the traditional sowing method. But nowadays there are farmers which use the modern sowing methods, and modern sowing methods are seed drills. You can see here seed drills. So this modern sowing method is seed drill. So now what is the difference between the traditional sowing method and the modern sowing method? So in traditional sowing method, the distance between the seeds are not even. Whereas in modern sowing method, you can see there's a fixed distance between each seeds and only one seed falls at a point. So there will be fixed distance, equal distance will be there, only one seed falls at a time, and the seed drills cover up the soil. Okay, after the sowing of seed, it cover up the soil. So when the soil get covered, the seeds will be prevented from birds. So these are the two methods which are used for sowing. One is the traditional method and the another one is the using of seed drills. Now the next step, so farmer has prepared the soil, farmer has added the seed to it. Now the next thing is to ensure whether the soil contain the adequate amount of nutrients required for the growth of plants. So plants require certain nutrients for their growth. Now these nutrients can be in very less quantity, which we call it as micronutrients, so if the nutrients are required in very small quantity, we call it as micronutrients. Okay, so these nutrients are known as micronutrients, but when the nutrients are required in large quantity, we call them as macronutrients. So macronutrients are nutrients that are required in large quantities. So what happens when a farmer keep on growing plants one after the other, the nutrients in the soil, the amount of nutrient in the soil decreases. And to replenish this nutrient, the farmer has to use manure or fertilizers. So manures and fertilizers are used by farmers to replenish the lost nutrients of the soil. Okay, so now let's see the difference between manure and fertilizer. If you see here, manures are obtained from decomposition of organic matters. Okay, manures are obtained from decomposition of organic matters, means from cow dung. Cow dung is an organic matter. Organic matter means any matter that is obtained from a living organism. Okay, so those are known as organic matter. So manure are either obtained from cow dung or from harvested waste. Okay, so when a plant is harvested, we get lot of waste. So those waste can also be used for making manure. Whereas fertilizers are inorganic salts. They are made in factories, they are inorganic salts. Because cow dung and harvested waste have bulkiness to it, it provides humus to the soil, and humus is very much required because humus helps to hold the water in the soil, whereas these fertilizers do not provide any humus to the soil. The next thing, it's very easy to make. Okay, we just need a cow dung or any harvested waste, and it has to be made compost of it, and this compost can be used in plants. It's very easy to make and it's very cheap because the materials are already available in the farm itself. Whereas these are made in factories. The farmers cannot make chemical fertilizer by themselves. These are made in factories and these are very expensive. Okay, these are very expensive. Now coming to manure, manure are rich in plant nutrients. There's no particular nutrient. Whatever nutrient is there in the plant waste, those all nutrients will be present in the manure. But coming to fertilizers, fertilizers will be rich in particular nutrients only. If you buy a NPK fertilizer, so it will be rich in only these three nutrients. Okay, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. But manure will be rich in all different plant nutrients. Okay, so this was the difference between manure and fertilizers. And manure or fertilizers are very important because they helps to replenish the nutrients in the soil. Now, apart from using manure and fertilizer, farmer can also undergo one more method which is very useful, and it helps to replenish the nutrients, lost nutrients naturally, and that method is crop rotation. So what is crop rotation? Crop rotation means planting different crops in different season. Just now we have studied what are Kharif crops and what are Rabi crops. So once the Kharif crops are harvested, farmer can plant a Rabi crop. Now once if in a field the farmer has grown paddy for a season, the farmer can grow legume for the other season. Legume means any gram plant, okay? Any gram can be grown in the other season. So what happens here is paddy uses more amount of nitrogen. So for the growth of paddy, high amount of nitrogen is required. But what this legume plant does? Legume plants, in their roots, they have the bacteria called rhizobium. They have a bacteria in the root which we call it as rhizobium. And this rhizobium helps to fix nitrogen and increases the nitrogen content of the soil. So when paddy is grown, the nitrogen content of the soil decreases, okay? And when legume is grown, the nitrogen content of the soil increases. So the soil is self-nourishing it nutrients due to crop rotation. So this method can also be followed by the farmer. So this was about the third step, that is manure and fertilizers. So first we have seen preparation of soil, next we have seen sowing, and the third step we have seen manure and fertilizer. Now next is irrigation. Plants, apart from manure or soil, plant also require water. Without water, a seed cannot germinate. So for a seed to germinate, the farmer has to make sure that the field has adequate amount of water. So the next step that a farmer has to follow is irrigation. Irrigation is very much required. It is watering of plants. Irrigation can be done by traditional method as well as by modern methods. So for a low scale production, traditional method of irrigation is used. But for large scale production, modern method of irrigations are used. And there are many benefits of modern methods from traditional methods. So you can see here, traditional methods are like Dekli, chain pump, moat. These are the traditional methods where farmer use water or water the field by their hands or using small pumps. So these are used for small fields, but for large fields, modern methods of irrigations are used. So two important modern methods of irrigation are, one is the sprinkler system, the sprinkler method. So here what happens? Here there are water supply pipes in the field and there's a nozzle here. This nozzles will be rotating. So because of this rotating nozzle, plants get water, okay? Plants get even amount of water, okay? The distribution of water will be equal and plants get water in the form of rain, okay? As rain falls, plants get water in that similar form. So here you can see. Now where it is used? It is not used in, plains. Moreover, sprinkler type of irrigation is used in uneven lands, okay? Uneven lands and where there is shortage of water because it falls like it's just sprinkle, okay, on the plant. So wherever there is shortage of water, we can go for sprinkler system. Now, here as I told you, water gets sprinkled like rain on the crops. Now, apart from the sprinkler system of irrigation, there is another system called drip irrigation. Now, in this drip irrigation, the water supply pipes are, it's actually placed all over the field and pipes reaches each root. So, from root, drop by drop, you can see that water falls drop by drop in the root zone, okay? It forms in the water falls drop by drop exactly in the root zone. So the plants will get water and lot of water loss will be prevented because the water is just means adequate amount of water falls on the root zone. So here you can see water drips drop by drop on the root region only. So the farmer don't need to water the whole field. Okay, only adequate amount of water is required here. Next, it saves water, lot amount of water is saved, and this is used where there is shortage of water. This method is used where there is shortage of water. So this was the fourth step which a farmer follows during crop cultivation. So first we have studied preparation of soil. Second, we have studied sowing. Third, we went for manuring and fertilizer. Fourth, we saw irrigation. Now let's solve a few questions. Now Kharif crops are sown in dash season. In which season Kharif crops are sown? We know that there are two types of crops, major crops in India. One is Kharif crop and the other one is Rabi crops. Now Kharif crops are sown during rainy season. Okay, during rainy season Kharif crops are sown. And in South India, if you see in South India, that is the region of Kerala, Karnataka, okay, so this regions mostly they grow Kharif crops because South India is rich in monsoon, okay, rain is very high in South Indian regions, whereas in North Indian regions you see there the winters are more extreme, so there Rabi crops are grown more, okay, mustards and all. You might have seen the photos of Punjab, you know, Punjab fields, deep yellow color, completely mustards, okay, covering the fields. So this can be, that view can be seen in North India because the winters are more prolonged there, okay. Now, which of the following is an example of Rabi crops? Rabi crops means winter crops. So, which crops? Paddy, cotton, mustard or maize? Which crop is a Rabi crop? Is an example of Rabi crop. So, here the example of Rabi crop is mustard. As I told you, in Punjab areas we see mustard growing a lot. Okay, so mustard is an example of Rabi crop. Now here you can see what will happen if field is not ploughed before sowing the seed. What will happen if the field is not ploughed? If the field is not ploughed, the seeds, the roots cannot penetrate inside, the water will not be absorbed, earthworms or healthy microbes cannot grow into the soil. Now the next thing, which of the following is not provided to the soil by a chemical fertilizer? Which of the following is not provided? We have seen the differences and we know what is not provided. It is humus. Humus is not provided. Humus is provided by manure and not by fertilizers. What are the advantage of drip irrigation? We have seen it saves water. It gives water only to the root region of the plant and no amount of water get wasted, and it is used in areas where there is shortage of water. Now the next step is protection from weeds. So what are weeds? What are weeds? Weeds are unwanted plants, okay, unwanted plants that grow along with the crop plants. Along with the crop plants, unwanted plants also grow. And this preparation of soil leads to remove the weed, okay. So weeds are very fast growing plant. They compete with the crops. They uses the nutrients of the crop. So they compete with the crop, they uses the nutrients of the crop and they suppress the growth of the crop. So it is very important to remove the weeds. So what are weeds? Weeds are unwanted plants growing in the crop field. They are unwanted plants growing in the crop field. So what it has to be done, this weeds has to be removed, and removing of weed is known as weeding. So how can we remove weed? Again, if I say if it is a small field, we can remove it by our hands or using kurfi. Okay, weeds are removed using kurfi. Okay, so either we can use our hands or we can use kurfi to remove the weeds. But if it is a large area, we cannot use hands to remove weed. So for that purpose, we use weedicides. Okay. Weedicides are chemicals that are used to remove weed. For example, 2,4-D. 2,4-D is a chemical which is used to remove weed. Farmer can also use neem extract. Neem extract is a natural weedicide. Okay, farmer can prepare neem extract in their farm and use it in their fields. Okay, so either they can use a chemical extract 2,4-D or they can use this neem extract. But these weedicides are very harmful. So the farmer must wear mask, gloves before spraying weedicides in the field. So this was about protection from weeds. So once they have protected their crops from the weeds, the next thing the farmer has to do is to monitor the crop till it get matured. Okay, so once the crop get matured, the farmer's next step will be harvesting of the crops. So what is harvesting? Harvesting is cutting of crops after it is mature. So once the crop is mature, the cutting of crop is known as harvesting, and it is done by hand as well as using machines. So nowadays every process, every agriculture process can be done by machines as well as hand. Okay, before it used to be done only by hands, so it was very labor intensive process, but now the farmer has to be skilled to operate the machine. So if the farmer is skilled to operate the machine, the farmer can increase the crop production. Okay, so before, sickles were used to harvest the crop. So once the crops get harvested, what is the next step? It has to be separated from the shaft. Now you can see, usually what happens, usually if we see paddy or wheat, they are seen attached, with the shaft. Now this is a paddy. So the paddy is seen attached with the shaft. So to separate it from the shaft, that is the paddy grains and the shaft, to separate it, that process is known as threshing. Threshing is the process in which the grains are separated from the shaft. Okay, that process is known as threshing. Nowadays, there are machines available which can do both harvesting and threshing. As you can see here, this is a harvester as well as a thresher. We call it as a combine because it do both purpose. Okay, it serves both purpose, that is harvesting as well as threshing. So it will cut the crops and separate the grains from the shaft. Now the next thing, when the grains and shaft get separated, the grain have to be removed from the shaft. Okay, it has come out from the shaft, but there is a mixture of shaft and grain. So winnowing is the last step here, where the grains get separated from the shaft. Okay, so shaft will be in one place and grains will be in the other place. So for this purpose also, nowadays we have winnowing machines. Okay, winnowing machines are used to separate the grains from the shaft. Now once this harvesting is done, the crops need to be stored. So for storage also, the farmer has to take care that there is no attack of insects or fungus to the crops. If not, the whole process, the whole tedious process will be in vain if the crops are not stored properly. So the last step of crop production is storage. So for storage, if it is a large scale storage, it is stored in silos. So this structure, this large storage tanks are known as silos, where the grains are stored in large scale productions. You might have seen while you are traveling through a train or something, you might have seen many storage granaries. Now the next thing, for small scale farmer, they store it in gunny bags in their godowns. Okay, but before storing it in a silo or in the gunny bag, the farmer has to dry the grains very well, because if you do not dry the grains, there'll be attack of fungus, insects, etc. Okay, so if there is pest attack, the whole crop production process will go in vain, because whatever has been yield, the yield will reduce. Okay, whatever is the yield, the amount of yield will reduce. So the farmer has to first dry the grains very well to remove all the moisture content of the grain. Okay, so this was about the different farm practices a farmer has to follow to get good yield. So the first one was preparation of soil, the second one was sowing, third was manure and fertilizing, okay. The fourth was irrigation, fifth protection from weeds, sixth was harvesting, and the last was storage. Now, apart from crop production, there are many farmers who focus on animals rearing also. Okay, so animal rearing is known as animal husbandry, and farmers go for animal rearing for their products, for this animal's product. So they rear poultry. You might have heard of poultry farms where hens, ducks are reared or goose are reared. Okay, so they are reared for their meat as well as eggs. Similarly, there are cattle farming. Cattle farming are done for milk, okay, for meat. Then we have the sheep farming where they do they farm sheep for wool. Okay, we have bee farming also for honey, bee wax, etc. Silkworm farming is there for silk, and then fish farming is there for fish, that is the flesh meat, or for cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is very healthy, hence fish farming is done. Okay, so animal husbandry is the rearing of animals for their products. Now you might have understood the very first image which I have shown here, that from where does this food come from and how it is cultivated. So we have understood how these foods are cultivated, and then after cultivating these are transported and they reach our plates. Now let's solve some questions. What are weedicides? What are weedicides? Weedicides are chemicals that are used to destroy the weeds. Give one example. You can give it as 2,4-D or neem extract. Okay, these are the weedicides. Next question. The process of beating out grains from the harvested wheat crop is called. Okay, I have already told the process of beating out grains from the harvested crop is known as threshing. Threshing is known as, threshing is the process in which the grains are separated from the shaft. Okay. Now, why it is necessary to dry the harvested food grains before storage? Why it is necessary? It is necessary because the moisture, if there is moisture in the grains, it will lead to the growth of fungus, different pests, etc. Hence, it is necessary to dry the crop so that there is no moisture in the grain and there is no attack of these microbes. So this was about the chapter. Hope you have understood how the farmers undergo different agriculture practices to get a good crop yield. Let's meet in the next chapter now. Thank you.
Manorama Horizon. Learning made simple.